Hey guys, it's your boy M.K.S back to you with part 2 of this video. As ever, I've got another cup of tea, but it's a bit too hot to drink right now. So anyway, as I say, I'm back with part 2 of this list of my plans. Carrying on from part 1, I was thinking about the reason why I'm covering Black empowerment and dyslexic empowerment is because October is both Black History Month and Dyslexia Awareness Month. Apologies for repeating points, but as I like to call it, Black History and Empowerment and Dyslexia Awareness and Empowerment months, but the reason why I think this is important to me, as a minority myself or a person of colour myself, and the fact that like white supremacy hates all people of colour, so I think that's something that should bring us together. And also being dyslexic, obviously that's important to me as well. I'm dyslexic, but I learned to spell, so I had extra one-to-one support when I was at school, but other people didn't have that support, so I also have other learning disabilities as well. So I'd love to, because I'm dyslexic also, I read things on the internet about famous dyslexics and all that. I had quite an interest in famous dyslexics, and dyslexic people have done well, so I found out quite a lot of that. And as an anti-imperialist, I'd love to share that information with people from Africa and Asia and places like that, and Ireland as well. It's another place I'd like to support, so what we can contribute. But also I would love to showcase what Black and stroke or dyslexic people have contributed to the world, and how their achievements and contributions have not always been acknowledged. Like, apparently there's quite a lot of Black and dyslexic and stroke or dyslexic inventors from history who haven't been acknowledged. A lot of things that people think that people don't realize Black people have actually invented, apparently. So I'm not sure how much truth is in that, but many people say there were some great things invented by Black people, but they've not always had that acknowledgement. So that's why I think it's so important to hear about the contributions of both Black and dyslexic people. Anyway, with that being said, I'm going to try and crack on with my list of ideas and plans. So on that note, number 11, I'd love to hear about Black and stroke or dyslexic inventors. I've heard of quite a few Black and stroke or dyslexic inventors, and I think probably from history, if you look at people who have been accredited with inventions, they probably haven't always been. It's hard to find out who really invented something, and I think historically a lot of inventions have been stolen from other people, so it is hard to say who originally invented certain things. So, but it would be interesting to hear people put a case forward about how Black and stroke or people are inventive and have invented many things, and it'd be great to again acknowledge their contributions to the world. Number 12, I'd love to have like mentors, role models, teachers, trainers, volunteers, and those sorts of people who go to parts of Africa especially, as well as Asia and Ireland and places like that, and talk about, and again, like in indigenous communities from what I call the four, which I've talked about before, including the Native American groups, communities, and Aborigines and Maoris and people like that, and to talk about dyslexic strengths as well, and awareness about dyslexia and what it is, and what weaknesses we have, but also what strengths we have. Like I say, like being inventive, creative, entrepreneurial, and things like that, what we can contribute, especially if we're pushed and encouraged. So I'd love for people across Africa, excuse me, especially, and also, as I say, Ireland and Asia and places around the world, to know that if there's a dyslexic student in the classroom, they can still achieve a lot of things, although they might not be the best academically. And they can be good at art, or in some cases, things like science, or tech, or entrepreneurship, maths, and things like that. But sometimes they just need to be able to understand them. So hopefully across Africa especially, excuse me, people will find out more about dyslexia and the positive sides of dyslexia. But again, I'd love to see mentors. In the past, I had this idea for like events across Africa especially, and also Asia, where like there was some events or summits or whatever you call it, conferences and things like that, with just an organisation called the Dyslexic Advantage, and also made by dyslexia, where they had famous or successful dyslexic people in their chosen fields, like business or technology or things like that. So I'd love to host events like that in the future, obviously when hopefully coronavirus is like under control, maybe a bit more, travel resumes, so to speak. So more people, entrepreneurs from the West, if you like, from Britain or America or places like that, can go and teach dyslexics especially, but also like the global black diaspora. Whoever's done well in business can go and teach their fellow African, go and teach where their ancestry is from, like in Africa. And I'd love for black people who have done well in Britain and places like that to go to Africa, parts of Africa, and teach, excuse me, maybe even find out where their roots are from. So people who have Kenyan ancestry can go and teach in Kenya and things like that. So they train up not just dyslexics, but people generally from the black diaspora. Number 13, for the 13th, which I see as an unlucky number, I hope to have a positive thing for the 13th, and also for Halloween, which I know Christians say is pagan, but I love for black and stroke or dyslexic people to create scary or sort of creepy and scary sort of art and stories, which they can write and maybe even make YouTube videos with where they tell their own stories or talk about African legends and dyslexic imagination and that sort of thing. Number 14, I'd love to be able to talk about and for people to post things about like the strengths of dyslexia, including in problem solving, and how problem solving can help people to possibly get rich, because what business is about really is solving problems, and I'm quite interested in business, although I've never set up my own business, to be honest. But that people from Africa learning, and again dyslexic people learning about how if you solve people's problem, that's what business is all about. Like someone said, I think Robert Kiyosaki and probably a lot of other financial gurus said, if you want $1 million, you have to solve $1 million problem. I think you probably have to solve more than $1 million problem, because you have to obviously pay your staff and things like that. But problem solving basically can be a route to riches. I hope that made sense. It's a strength dyslexic people and possibly even black people have, which could help. And maybe they could work together and solve problems. Number 15. I think it'd be great if the global black diaspora also, as I say, especially in Africa and also around the world, learns about dyslexia, and again learns that a student or basically a young person who might not be able to read or write or do academic stuff very well might be good in other areas, but because so many people focus on academia, they perhaps feel left behind. And maybe like I think when I was younger, if I learned about famous and successful dyslexic people a lot more, maybe I would have been more confident. And I think hopefully young people around the world with dyslexia hopefully will find those role models and mentors and people like that who can give them the confidence and inspiration. Again, hope that made sense. But I'd love to help both black and dyslexic people to reach their full potential and to fulfill their dreams and aspirations and things like that. Number 16, I'd love to support projects by black and stroke or dyslexic people, such as YouTubers, especially from Africa, and promote African tourism, and look at the best ways to support black and stroke or dyslexic people. What ideas could inspire more black and stroke or dyslexic people to become independent, self-reliant, not rely on the government. I know that's a bit rich of me to say, but possibly become entrepreneurial or create our own YouTube channels and perhaps support each other's YouTube channels so we can become as independent as possible, avoiding crime or not relying on the state too much, perhaps, if we can. So becoming as independent as possible, as I say, running our own projects such as businesses, technology, YouTube channels and things like that, social media and websites and that sort of thing. Number 17, again, I'd love to see find out more about dyslexic strengths and encourage dyslexic people to tell stories and sell their own stories through books and YouTube and other sorts of ways to express themselves using their imagination, as I say, both black and dyslexic people, especially from Africa, as with all these ideas. So obviously also not just negative stories, but or scary stories, but also positive, uplifting stories as well. So all types of stories. Number 18, again, I'd love to have like mentors, role models, and people who, like where black and stroke or dyslexic people can say what makes them proud to be black and stroke or dyslexic, respectively, or in some people's case, both of those things, and also which black and stroke or dyslexic person inspires them the most, like whether it's a celebrity or someone they know who's done really well, inspire their challenges and that sort of thing. Number 19, I'd love to encourage and support black people in areas like STEM, black and stroke or dyslexic people, in areas like STEM, especially across Africa, and support Africa in STEM, software development, startups, SMEs, and even to grow into bigger businesses. and to encourage them to think big, dream big, have higher goals, and that sort of thing. And number 20, I love to support, as I said before, like young, especially young Black and dyslexic people, especially in Africa. And also I'd love to hear from Black and dyslexic people about their experiences of traveling, and what countries they feel have treated them the worst or the best, respectively. So as ever, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm out. Peace and love.